Imagine this. You're camping. It's autumn, clear skies. The trail is familiar, short, no climbs. Everything's close. Everything feels safe. With you, a woman, 58 years old, just a casual walk, half an hour there and back. Halfway in, she lags a little, lights a cigarette, cracks a joke, says, "I'll catch up with you at the trailer." She turns around a hill, and no one ever sees her again. 10 minutes later, you call her name. Silence. You head back. Check for footprints. Nothing. Return to camp. She's not there. Her husband says she never came back. An hour passes. Rangers are called. 2 hours. Search dogs are on the trail. 3. There's a helicopter overhead. The dogs lose the scent in an open clearing. No tracks. No signs of a struggle. No trace she was ever on that trail at all. Just a turn. 15 seconds. And she's gone. And here's the thing. In the past 20 years, others have vanished from this same place. None of them have ever been found. September 25th, 1981. The North Carolina side of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Deep Creek Campground. The weather's warm and dry. 75 degrees, a light southwest breeze. Just another autumn day. The kind Thelma Pauline Melton, known to everyone simply as Polly, had enjoyed here almost every season. Polly was 58, 5'10", about 180 pounds. She wore glasses, smoked, and took medication for high blood pressure. But she could handle the park's gentle trails with ease. Her husband, Robert, much older and in poor health, spent most days resting in their aluminum trailer, parked in its permanent spot at the campground. When Polly went for her walks, she carried only cigarettes, a lighter, and a watch. Her ID, money, and medication stayed behind. That Friday afternoon, Polly set out on a familiar loop along the Deep Creek Trail with 2 camping friends she called Trula and Red. They started around 3 p.m. near the wooden footbridge at the trailhead. It was considered an easy route, less than 500 feet of elevation gain, smooth dirt underfoot. Polly wore a pink and white striped sleeveless cotton top, beige polyester pants, and low crepe-soled shoes. The left sole had a crack straight across, a detail that would matter later when searchers compared footprints. For the first half mile, the 3 women walked together. Polly seemed slower than usual, joking that she just hadn't warmed up yet. But on the way back, around 4 p.m., her pace suddenly changed. According to her friends, after a bit of teasing about her slow walking, Polly straightened up, took several long, quick strides, pulled ahead, and disappeared behind a small rise. The bend in the trail was about 100 yards away. 15, maybe 20 seconds later, she was gone from sight. Trula and Red kept their own pace, expecting to see her back at the campsite. Usually they arrived within minutes of each other, but when they reached the trailer, around 4:30, only Robert was there, sitting by the open window. He hadn't left, and he hadn't seen Polly since she walked out earlier. The friends immediately retraced the trail. They called her name, looked for the cracked shoe print. Nothing. At 6 p.m., they reported her missing to the nearest park ranger. Before nightfall, the park launches its first hasty team. About 40 people, 2 tracking dogs, handheld radios. The dogs take Polly's scent from a pillow inside the trailer. They head out on the trail, moving steadily toward that familiar bend. But just beyond the line of sight, both dogs lose the scent, at the exact same spot. Later, handlers will log it as a sudden scent drop, the kind you see when someone steps onto hard, man-made ground or into a waiting vehicle. On the ground, volunteers find countless hiking boot prints from the day before. It had been a perfect Friday. More visitors than usual. But that one print with the cracked sole, nowhere to be found in the loose dirt. After sunset, the search is called off for the night. Temperatures drop below 60 degrees. Light is fading, and there are no cliffs or deep waters nearby that would demand an urgent sweep. The first night passes without a trace. Polly doesn't return to camp. No campfires are spotted along the trail. No passing drivers on Highway 441 report seeing her. And here, between that low rise in the trail and the footbridge at the trailhead, a strange void takes shape. 4 minutes of quickened walking collapse into nothing. A nothing that, even decades later, will never be filled with a single piece of solid evidence. Saturday, September 26th. The first rays of sun cut through the mist above the creek. The thermometer holds steady at 60 degrees. At 6:05 a.m., the duty ranger logs the start of an expanded search. Nearly 50 people gather in formation outside the visitor center. Rangers, local volunteers, 3 medics, and 3 canine teams. The plan: cover a square mile and a half of forest around the point where Polly's trail had gone cold the day before. They grid the routes like a chessboard, each square a quarter mile across. First sweep, north to south. 20 minutes later, a cross sweep from west to east. 2 layers of search, minimizing the chance of missing even the smallest clue. In charge, Ranger Tom Garvey. 15 years of search and rescue experience. His job: keep the line tight. The forest isn't a chain, but today we have to be one. The dogs are scented from 2 items: a pillowcase from Polly's bed and a towel from the trailer's shower. First out is Tess, a black lab. She moves confidently down the trail, but 100 yards in, her tail drops. Nose to the ground, eyes scanning, searching for a reason to circle. Minutes later, Larry, a Belgian Malinois, gives the exact same signal. His track just slightly farther east. Handlers log it, a sudden scent drop in a straight line. It's what you see when a person steps onto a surface that won't hold microscopic scent particles like an old wooden footbridge or bare rock. Meanwhile, 2 arrows of volunteers move toward the small oak grove where Polly had picked up her pace the day before. They check every patch of mottled leaves, hoping for that one print, the cracked sole. The forest offers crushed leaves, broken twigs, shreds of foil from hikers' snacks, but nothing they can tie to her. Then, half an hour in, search leader Alan Fay spots an elongated depression in soft silt, about the size of a human palm. They photograph it, bag a soil sample, but the shape is too vague, a heel print, or just a fallen piece of bark. By 8:30 a.m., air support is in the air. An aging Bell helicopter, a thermal camera mounted to its nose. The pilots sweep slowly along the creek bed. On their monitor, cold fog drifts like restless ghosts, masking anything warm and alive. One bright signal appears southeast of the trail. But when the ground team arrives, it's only a sun-warmed boulder. The first flight ends with nothing. By noon, rangers have locked down a 1-mile radius from the last point of contact. Every single item found inside the search grid is logged, bagged, and labeled. A rusty pull ring from a tin can, number 1. A plastic bread bag clip, number 2. A torn scrap of cloth with embroidered initials, S, number 3. In the years to come, there will be hundreds of entries like this, not one tied to Polly. After a quick break for water and energy bars, the teams push east. Here, the ground turns rockier. Old wooden footbridges surface from the past, remnants from the Great Depression. One of them, swallowed in moss and rot, seems to fit the handler's theory. If Polly stepped on something like this, the scent trail could have ended instantly. They photograph the bridge, but it says nothing. The wood has been dead for decades. It holds no prints. By 4:01 p.m., the weather shifts. Humidity rises. Drops form on the leaves. Garvey pulls his people back to base for the evening briefing. Pulling off his gloves, he tells the dog handlers plainly, "Our chances for finding her alive are fading. From here on, we're looking for anomalies." The National Park Service statistics are blunt. The further from the moment of disappearance, the higher the odds you're no longer searching for a person, but for their things. Sunset comes around 7 ba. The forest sinks into black, damp silence. only the sound of droplets falling from the canopy to the leaves below. The searchers return to camp. On the duty desk, a single lamp burns over the daily log. Saturday, no discoveries. The ranger signs, then writes in pencil along the margin, "Continue at first light, bring in second helicopter." And so ends the first full day of the search. No fresh tracks, no dropped belongings, no stray campfires on the slopes. Only a clean, empty line between the bend in the trail where Polly sped up and the old wooden bridge that could have erased every trace. A strip of forest, 2 or 3 football fields long, that would, for years to come, stand at the center of every theory, from tragic accident to a carefully planned disappearance. Sunday, September 27th, the second full day of the large-scale search. By dawn, reinforcements arrive. K-9 units from Haywood County and 22 volunteers from the local civil defense team. Now, more than 80 people are on the trails. The minimum goal, double the search radius, push out to 6 miles from the point of disappearance, and check every possible exit to highways 441 and 19. The command post runs under canvas. A forest map lies pinned with colored tacks, marking search routes and the exact spots where dogs had lost the scent. The day starts with an aerial sweep by the Park Service helicopter. On board, a brand new thermal camera, more sensitive than yesterday's, able to pick out even the faintest heat signatures beneath the canopy. They fly low, zigzagging along the creek. No signs of human warmth. The only bright spot, a large raccoon drinking from the water. From the air, the area looks like an unbroken sea of treetops. The trail below disappears into a mottled green-brown texture as if it had never existed. On the ground, dog handlers return to the old Depression-era footbridge. This time, the scent is tobacco, from an open pack of Virginia Slims found in the trailer. The pattern is the same as before, a short pull forward, then nothing. Both dogs stop almost at the edge of the bridge. Ranger Tom Garvey assigns Delta Team, 4 people with metal detectors and probing rods. For an hour, they dig into moss, search between the beams. Nothing. The bridge is officially logged as a scent eraser. If Polly stepped there, her trail would vanish. And clean prints? Impossible. By noon, search quadrants stretch to the nearest forest roads. On a logging track leading toward Highway 441, a civil defense tracker spots a fresh light pickup tire print. Part of it is overlapped by tracks from a Ranger Jeep the day before, but the tread points in the opposite direction. The report estimates the pickup passed between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. on Friday, the very window between Polly's disappearance and her friend's return to camp. The tread is recorded, but without a tighter time frame, it's just an unexplained vehicle. Back at the command post, a radio call comes in from Swain County Sheriff's Office. Overnight, a man was stopped for speeding on Highway 19. In his pickup, officers noticed a woman's jacket and a handbag on the front seat. No ID for the owner, only the initials, PM. The sheriff checks against the missing persons bulletin. The color and size of the jacket don't match. The bag is empty. One possible lead, gone as quickly as it appeared. At 3:00 p.m., Garvey holds an impromptu briefing. 2 days in, over 130 people deployed, 6 miles of terrain searched, 0 physical evidence. He decides to shift to extended mode, 2 more days of active searching, then weekly maintenance sweeps. It's standard Park Service protocol. By day 5, if there's no clothing, no biological trace, the odds of finding someone alive drop to near statistical 0. As ground teams fan out to new sectors, the center of gravity in the investigation shifts, from pure search and rescue to the first hints of a voluntary disappearance. That evening, a county sheriff's investigator begins interviewing campers. 3 new details about Polly emerge. First, her mother had died that spring. Friends described her as withdrawn, like something inside had short-circuited. Second, neighbors from her Florida winter home remembered frequent phone calls with a man in Alabama and daily trips to the mailbox, after which she would lock herself in her bedroom. Third, her friend said she'd recently complained of money troubles, but also hinted, soon everything will be taken care of. Late Sunday night, a medic arrives at the command post, the one who's been with Polly's husband. Robert Melton suffered a second stroke the moment he heard she was missing. He can't speak, but nods when asked. No, she never left home without her medicine. The medic is blunt. Don't wait too long before asking the hard question. She won't survive a week without those pills. The night into Monday hums with generators and low voices over the radio. At 3 a.m., confirmation, no sign of a woman matching Polly's description on any road leading from the park. The hitchhiking theory stays on the table, but without a witness, it goes nowhere. Dawn. 2 National Guard helicopters arrive, sweeping every gully where rainwater might have lingered. On the ground, cadaver dogs join the search for the first time, trained to sense the gases of early decomposition. They cover the same quadrants as yesterday's trackers. Not one dog slows down. By noon Monday, the command tent holds every object recovered: scraps of foil, soda can rings, a shard of colored plastic, a flat rock with a chipped edge. 125 items, not a single woman's belonging. No Virginia Slim cigarettes, no shoe fragments. Harvey signs the report. Phase 3 complete. No finds, which in reality means the 24-hour search is over. But something happens after the camp folds. Tuesday evening, Polly's sister in Florida gets a strange call. The line connects. Silence. 15 seconds. Then the click of disconnection. Time of call, 7:36 p.m., 4 days after Polly vanished. The payphone at Deep Creek Campground could dial long distance, and in the phone company's log, the call exists. Who picked up that receiver, and why say nothing? No one knows. From here, Polly Melton's case splits in two. The first, the physical search, ends with a zeroed-out protocol. The second, the analysis, is just beginning, leading to gas station receipts, long-distance records, and a mysterious man from Alabama. By Friday morning, October 2nd, the search operation around Deep Creek reached its formal limit. 3 helicopters, 60 relief canine handlers, 240 volunteers, and 7 National Guard drones. The result was the same as on day 1, 0 traces of Polly Burnett Melton. At a briefing in the tented command post, Ranger Tom Harvey reads the numbers. 62 square miles covered, average sweep depth 15 inches, 15 tons of leaf litter disturbed, 796 items cataloged, no personal belongings of the missing person found. According to National Park Service protocol, such an outcome shifts the case from active search to investigation of circumstances. The physical search is wound down, leaving only weekly patrols on duty. For the Melton family, this sounds like a verdict. Robert, paralyzed by his stroke, can no longer speak, but turns his head away from the camera as the medic reads the decision. Polly's sister, Carolyn, weeps on the trailer porch and pleads with the Rangers to continue, even if with a reduced team. Harvey replies with a procedural phrase, "We will respond to any new evidence." Thus, the search effort stalls, yielding to bureaucracy and analysis. First, the detective from Swain County reviews the family's bank records. A curious detail emerges. The Meltons had a certificate of deposit for $5,000, opened back in the 70s in Birmingham, Alabama. The account belongs to both spouses. Interest is paid every 6 months, but the funds can only be withdrawn in person at the bank. The history shows that twice a year the withdrawals were made by Polly herself. At least, the ledger notes bear the initials P.B. Melton, personal signature. The last recorded transaction is dated March 1981. When investigators ask if any payments were made after Polly's disappearance, the bank refuses. Information on account activity is only provided upon request from a federal agency. Such a request is immediately sent to the FBI. Meanwhile, investigators dig into the dark side of phone records. That strange attempt to call Polly's sister, 15 seconds of silence 4 days after the disappearance, remains unexplained. But in the same records, another earlier call emerges. On the evening of September 15th, 10 days before Polly set out on the trail, the payphone by the trailer connected to a number in Gadsden, Alabama. The subscriber, Charles Wilson, 62, an auto mechanic. He had already been mentioned by neighbors as the man Polly talked to on the phone. The detectives drive out to Wilson's place. He meets them in a garage smelling of diesel and rubber. He speaks calmly. Polly was a pen pal. They met 3 years ago when he was vacationing in Deep Creek. They exchanged postcards about the weather once a month. According to him, there were no personal meetings. Alibi checks confirmed that on the day of the disappearance, Wilson indeed worked overtime. The work order check was signed by the foreman. No concrete ties linking him to the event are found, but his name remains in the file. While these contacts are being re-verified, the FBI finally receives a bank response. In early October, the Melton's deposit was automatically renewed, and the interest was withdrawn in cash. The recipient's identity, P.B. Melton. The date of the transaction, 8 days after the disappearance. The signature on the cash receipt resembles Polly's, but is not identical. A handwriting expert notes a match on 6 out of 10 parameters, concluding likely a forgery or altered motor control. The bank's security cameras had their tape replaced a month ago. No footage is available. The geography stands out. Birmingham is only 90 miles from Gadsden, the town of Charles Wilson. Coincidence? Detectives visit the banker who processed the transaction. He recalls a middle-aged woman, dark hair with gray streaks, round glasses, calm demeanor. She presented an old passport. The passport was confiscated in the logs, but the copy is faint. The face is barely visible. This news divides the family. Polly's sister, Carolyn, insists. Polly is alive. She withdrew the money herself and went into hiding. The rank-and-file rangers doubt it. A woman without medication, documents, or a car making a nearly 200-mile journey. Highly unlikely. The detective voices a middle ground. If someone she knew helped her, the route becomes plausible. But who? Wilson denies seeing Polly after the 70s, and the only relative in the area, a distant cousin, has no known phone number or address. Meanwhile, the ranger's safe still holds catalog number 796. The forensic lab slowly sifts through the findings. Due to the lack of DNA technology in the early 80s, epithelial cells are preserved in paper bags, but the results are zero. Saliva on a foil scrap belongs to someone else, threads from a handkerchief are uncharacteristic of Polly's clothes, and the plastic found near the creek was once a flashlight cover. Each report ends with the same line, not linked to the case. Against the backdrop of these dead ends, rumors multiply. Tourists tell stories about a woman resembling Mrs. Melton who was supposedly seen at a bus station in Knoxville. A truck driver claims he gave a ride to a passenger wearing an angel medallion all the way to Chattanooga. Checks fail to confirm any of these episodes. There are few cameras, no receipts, witnesses, confused dates. But each time, facts are pushed aside, and the main question arises. Was this a voluntary disappearance? Partial support for this theory comes from medical details. Polly's therapist recorded depression after her mother's death, rapid weight loss, 13 pounds in 6 months, and a desire to start over, a quote from a visit to her family doctor. For the investigation, this means there is a psychological motive for her to leave. But a physical barrier remains, medication. Without it, the risk of hypertensive crisis rises dramatically. By December 1981, the investigation is officially divided. The accident line is put on hold. The voluntary disappearance line is transferred to the FBI's Economic Division, and the criminal interference line remains with the District Attorney's Office. In fact, it all boils down to one question: was the woman at the Birmingham Bank branch or not? If yes, the forest search loses its meaning. If no, then who signed the check? Documentary answers remain elusive. Search trails grow over with leaves, rangers return to routine patrols, and Polly Burnett Melton's file moves from the field headquarters to the steel archive cabinet, where each new page becomes thinner than the last. The next active check is scheduled for March 1982, when the bank will accrue interest again. What will the signature show? And will it appear at all? The waiting drags on, and between the turn of the trail and the bank cashier in Birmingham lies a gap that cannot yet be bridged by map or logic. March 1982. In Birmingham, Alabama, a clerk at the Sand Trust branch places a ledger on the counter. The Melton deposit has once again reached the date for interest accrual. The day before, the bank received a fax from the FBI. Any attempt to cash out the account must be immediately recorded. According to instructions, the cashier is required to detain the client under the pretext of verifying the signature and immediately call the agent. For 2 consecutive days, nothing but a queue of pensioners waiting for their payments stands at the door. On the 3rd day, the same emptiness. The interest is automatically added to the principal deposit. The form is stamped unclaimed, and the diner across the street closes for the night. The investigator's first serious hope fades. If Polly did indeed sign the check in October, she did not come for the money in March. At the same time, in Florida, the district investigator meets with the endocrinologist who had monitored Polly in recent years. The doctor is blunt. Her blood pressure fluctuated. It rose when she stopped taking pills, fell when she resumed. Without consistent medication, she could not maintain stable health. The calculation is simple: 6 months without medication, a high risk of stroke. This medical note adds a new argument to the voluntary disappearance file. The woman would have had to carefully plan her medication supplies, otherwise her escape would be a game of Russian roulette. Meanwhile, an FBI agent drives around Florida with a composite sketch based on the memories of the Birmingham bank cashier. A woman aged 50 to 60, dark hair with more gray than on Polly's old driver's license, and rectangular glasses rather than round ones. Comparing the image to family albums, Polly's sister Caroline shakes her head. Looks like her friend Virginia, but that's definitely not Polly. The sketch is published in a local newspaper. 2 women respond, claiming it is their neighbor, a wayward schoolteacher, but checks confirm they are different people, born in different years. At the same time, an unexpected lead emerges. In April, a trucker from U-Shipping files a report. He gave a ride to a fellow traveler wearing an angel medallion from Atlanta to Knoxville. The date, March 13th, shortly after the Quiet Bank event. According to the driver, the woman introduced herself as Miss Wilson from Florida, asked to be dropped off at the bus station, and left for the waiting hall. Checking cameras is impossible. The station was not yet equipped with video. The surname remains a disputed detail: Wilson. The same as Charles, the mechanic from Gadsden. Charles Wilson is called in again, this time for a polygraph test. The questions are direct. Did he go to Birmingham, help Polly get a passport, or meet her after her disappearance? Wilson calmly passes the test, his biology steady. The official conclusion: no evidence of false testimony detected. For the investigation, this is not a 100% alibi, but the balance of evidence leans toward just an acquaintance. By the summer of 1982, the case was again bogged down in bureaucracy. Only a single patrol remained for the forest search. Rangers combed the trails once a month, taking fresh shoe prints to rule out the discovery of a skeleton. Each time, nothing. Meanwhile, the financial branch grew new layers of bureaucracy. The bank changed its policy, requiring a current photograph for every large transaction. In September, a camera with a developing kit was finally installed at the teller's window, but no one came for the interest. The second no-visit period. Autumn brought what seemed a trivial piece of paper, but it became the key to many archival speculations. The Georgia Postal Service intercepted an unmarked envelope with no sender's address, addressed to Polly B. Wilson, not Melton, but Wilson, in the city of Mobile. Inside was a blank sheet and a newspaper clipping about a missing retired woman. A copy was sent to the FBI. According to linguists, the blank sheet could be a signal letter. If the recipient is alive, they would understand the condition. Who sent it remains unknown. Early 1983. A rare thaw in the Great Smoky Mountains washes away last year's layer of leaves. Rangers once again scour the ravines near the old footbridge. The result is the same: nothing. Over the winter, the statistics accumulate a new curve. Out of 85 adults who got lost in the parks over the previous 2 years, 73 were found alive or dead within the first 7 days. Polly remains among the 12 who vanished without a trace. Her file is moved to a separate anomalous cabinet. There, the first mention of a possible forged signature appears. An FBI graphologist, comparing the October check and old letters, notices a peculiarity. Polly's letter M always started from the bottom up, but in the bank voucher, the line goes top down. Technically, it could be a hand tremor, but it could also be another person. There is no direct refutation, and the theory that the check was signed by a third party goes into the annual report. Meanwhile, Robert Melton's health rapidly declines. In April 1983, he dies from a second stroke, never uttering a word to the investigators. During the estate sorting, his niece finds a box of envelopes, all addressed to Charles Wilson, but empty. Either drafts or those very blank signals. The circle returns, Wilson again, and the unclear connection again. That summer, the National Park Service updates regulations. Every cold case will be reviewed if there is financial activity or a DNA request. At that time, DNA analysis did not exist yet, but the clause was added. Thus, an empty CODIS form marked pending is placed in Polly's file. In fact, the next reason to revisit the case will come only a decade later, when this very analysis becomes routine. By the end of 1983, the investigation's focus is the bank deposit. Investigators wait for October, the next interest accrual. Does anyone come to withdraw the money? No. Zero activity. 2 missed payments in a row significantly shift the perspective. If Polly withdrew the money a week after disappearing, why didn't she show up again? Did she only need that amount for a quick start, or was the signature forged by someone else? The final report from the district prosecutor contains a double maybe. Maybe the missing woman left the park alive and restructured her life while dogs and helicopters searched the forest. Maybe the check was signed by someone using Polly's name, and she herself died in the first days, lying where no one has looked yet, in a crevice, under a landslide, beyond the early mistake of the route. No scenario receives the decisive label, confirmed. This marks the end of the second year after the disappearance. The search is officially called off, and the file is classified as open with no active investigation. Before the next interest payment date, only a calendar reminder remains. If someone appears again at the Birmingham teller, the clerk is instructed to delay the client just long enough for the police to arrive. But will anyone show up? The early 1990s bring instruments, not people, to the investigation. The National Park Service acquires its first portable thermal imagers and upgrades the Cold Cases program. As part of this update, Polly Melton's file receives a yellow tag. Recheck upon availability of new leaf litter search methods. The forest where she was searched is annually covered by a leaf carpet several inches thick. Previously, disturbing it without turning the slope into a landslide was impossible. Now, an engineering firm from North Carolina offers to test a lightweight ground-penetrating radar device. It moves over the ground, sending pulses up to 3 feet deep and displaying layers on a screen like pages of a book. March 1992. A 5-person team sets out to Deep Creek. They work for 4 days, scanning 6 straight corridors, each 20 feet wide. The monitor flashes signals, several voids, old root systems, a couple of dense layers, boulders. No shapes resembling a human skeleton. Every hit is flagged, gently uncovered with small trowels, photographed, and covered again. The report adds another line to the file. No discoveries. At the same time, the forensic lab completes a second DNA test on the pillowcase, towel, and comb seized from the trailer. The fabric has been stored for 11 years, but epithelial cells are still readable. The female profile confirms Polly's identity. 3 male markers are found nearby. One belongs to her husband, the second to a cousin's nephew who visited in winter 1981. The third does not match any reference sample from the county police. The profile is uploaded to the federal CODIS database, which at the time contains fewer than 1 million entries. No matches. The tag unidentified male remains without an address. Meanwhile, the seemingly dormant bank line suddenly twitches. On September 14, 1994, the SunTrust office records an automatic fax request for a deposit statement from an unknown source. The number is traced to a repair shop for agricultural machinery in Georgia. The owner insists the fax machine has a life of its own. Lines often get crossed. Still, the date raises concern, exactly 1 week before the next interest payment. Clerks prepare again for a potential visit, but no one comes to the counter. The account remains untouched for the next period. In mid-1996, technological advances once again call the rangers into the forest. This time, cadaver dogs trained to detect the gases of decomposition even through 2 to 3 feet of soil. 2 teams from Tennessee offer their services free of charge. They sweep the area in the same checkerboard pattern used by the previous searchers and the ground-penetrating radar. 6 overlapping lines, totaling 3 miles. Not a single dog alerts. The chief canine handler issues a report stating, "The probability of finding remains up to 2 feet deep in the specified sector is extremely low." The wording is cautious, but in fact, this is the last major operation in the original disappearance zone. Meanwhile, federal agents analyze the 3rd thread, the same mysterious October 1981 check. In 1997, when the bank transfers archives to microfiche, an expert, paging through the miniaturized images, notices a large letter W in a red logo visible in the background of the cashier's hall frame. Reconstruction shows that the lighting repairs in the hall at that time were handled by Wilson's company. The connection is indirect, but brings back the old name of the mechanic from Gadsden. Wilson is checked again, now in light of new property records. Over the last 5 years, the man has registered 5 permits for crossing the state border with a trailer home. Overnight stops are campsites along the Appalachian Trail. There is still no direct evidence. The route is curious, but not criminal. By November 2001, the USA Patriot Act requires banks to fully digitally identify their clients. The Melton deposit is re-registered, and the system automatically sends a letter to the last declared address, Jacksonville, Florida. The letter is returned marked "Recipient Moved." A series of auto requests triggers a verification chain. If the owner does not confirm identity, the account will be frozen. After 90 days, the bank receives a package of documents by mail from Birmingham. A passport made out to Polly Burnett Wilson, a photo of a woman with a short dark streak in her hair and an angel pendant. The document looks new, the seal, freshly made 2 months ago. The FBI requests the original document. Visual inspection reveals that the photo is glued over another image with a double thickness of laminate. The photo is sent for spectral analysis. Beneath the primary layer, the contours of another face emerge, a male with short hair. Experts explain this technique is sometimes used in passport cloning, covering someone else's photo with one's own to bypass databases, which at the time cannot detect the hidden layer. While the technical team carefully attempts to peel off the laminate, a local judge signs a warrant to monitor the bank branch. Yet again, no one appears at the teller's window. The passport copy only redirects interest payments to a controlled account. Personal presence is not required. Spring 2003. The lab finally separates the double laminate. Under the female portrait, male features, about 40 years old, a distant resemblance to the mechanic Wilson, but no exact matches. The passport is declared forged. However, in the same week, the Department of Justice changes procedures for such cases. Without a live suspect, pressing criminal charges for passport forgery using someone else's data is deemed impractical. Polly's file falls silent again, now in a digital archive rather than a cardboard folder. That summer, Deep Creek is hit by a once-in-a-century flood. Puddles stretch into long tongues. The creek carves new furrows. After the waters recede, a plastic barrel washes up on a sandy bank. Inside are scraps of old newspapers and a torn notebook page. The ink is blurred, but through the stains one can read, "Robert, forgive me," and below, "Florida." Paper analysis dates the sheet to the early 80s, typical for motel stationery. The fragment is too small for DNA sampling, but it is placed under glass and numbered as Exhibit 137, the first item connected to the Melton family in the search zone for 2 decades. The question remains, did the flood wash the scrap from the depths of the ravine, or did someone place it later, knowing Deep Creek was being searched for such clues? By the end of 2003, the case rests on 3 pillars. First, the forest remains silent, even under radar and dogs. Second, the new passport in Polly Burnett Wilson's name is forged, but the holder remains unidentified. Third, the barrel with the apology, "Robert, forgive me," surfaces where currents had never before left anything larger than wood chips. Each fact tempts further pursuit, but they remain unlinked. The thread breaks between Deep Creek Trail, Birmingham City, and the Tennessee River. January 2006. Birmingham's Sun Trust again renews the Melton's deposit. The account is alive, interest accrues, but for the 3rd consecutive period, no one approaches the teller. The FBI notes the last confirmed visit, that October 1981 check, remains the only one. If Polly herself withdrew money then, she never returned. If another person signed, they disappeared as well. At this point, the investigation splits into 2 unequal streams. The first, financial, loses momentum. The bank is absorbed into a large holding company, archives move to a centralized system, and data quality suffers under bureaucratic inertia. The second, fieldwork, ignites twice more with attempts to penetrate the silent forest. The first breakthrough, autumn 2010. The Park Service gains access to LiDAR aerial laser scanning technology. A team of surveyors brings equipment roughly the size of a hiking backpack to Deep Creek. Laser pulses penetrate the canopy and map terrain features down to 1/10 of a foot. In the bare digital terrain model, they search for pits, cracks, and depressions. After 3 days of scanning, 6 unusual depressions are found on the slopes. At the 4th site, a mini excavator uncovers an old deep fire pit beneath a layer of leaf litter, dated by charcoal to the early 1980s. No metal, no fabric, no bones. The other 5 depressions turn out to be root wads of fallen trees. The LiDAR map is archived, useful for botanists, but for Polly's case, 0. The second attempt, spring 2018. A new state law requires all cold cases involving adults to be entered into the National NamUs database. Polly's file undergoes digital scanning. Wedding ring, glasses, description of a crack on the left sole, family DNA, all combined into one record. NamUs algorithms automatically cross-check the data against unidentified remains nationwide. In the first 12 months, the system yields 5 matches by height and age. 3 are excluded by lab tests, different dental structure. 2 fail geographical consistency. The remains belong to women who disappeared long before Polly. So again, 0. Meanwhile, independent authors writing about national park mysteries keep the story alive. Every couple of years, volunteer enthusiasts come to Deep Creek armed with GPS, metal detectors, and cameras. One such trip in autumn 2021 films an episode for a YouTube channel about disappearances. The result? A long shot of the trail's bend and a comment, "Here, you don't feel how fast a person disappears from view." No practical leads, but the spike in views generates a dozen new calls to the park with, "I saw a woman who looked like her," none confirmed by documents. Technology stirs shadows from the 1990s once more. Since December 2022, a voluntary genetic genealogy service uploads anonymized profile segments to CODIS. The unidentified male DNA trace from Polly's pillowcase is run through updated algorithms. No matches yet, but the chance to find a related cousin increases, so the file is marked priority upon every database expansion. To this day, silence. The 40th anniversary of the disappearance, September 2021, passes without an official ceremony due to COVID restrictions. The Park Service posts a brief message on social media asking for any information. The post gathers several hundred shares, but within the replies, the same stories. "I think I saw her." No receipts, passports, tickets, or photos. Just memories and shadows. At this point, the investigation rests on 3 pillars that seem solid but yield little. Medical factor. Without regular hypertension medication, Polly was at risk of stroke within just a few days. If she left on her own, she would have needed to stock up on medicine in advance or have a medical accomplice. No prescriptions or pharmacy purchases in Florida or Alabama were found for the fall of '81. Financial factor. The only check from October, 0 subsequent visits, and the forged passport all point to someone else's involvement. But neither cameras nor witnesses have led to a specific name. The check could be either a gesture of a runaway or an attempt to steal someone else's money. Territorial factor. The forest has been combed on foot with dogs, ground-penetrating radar, and LiDAR scans. No fabric, no bones. Either the body lies somewhere out of reach of people and technology, or it was never left in Deep Creek at all. In January 2025, the Park Service computer again reminds staff of a scheduled review. The deposit has been accumulating interest for 43 years. The account still grows automatically, but the client never shows up. The bank has long kept documents only digitally, and there is no checkbook. The automatic report states, "Activity, interest only." Meanwhile, nothing changes in the forest. The trail's bend has grown a bit denser, but still hides a person walking just 20 or 30 steps behind. The Great Depression-era boardwalk has sagged. Dog owners no longer walk their dogs on the moss. The area is considered worked over. The only new sign is a small plaque on the campground's information board. If you have information about the disappearance of Thelma Pauline Melton, please call. The phone number is the same as 40 years ago. It might ring at any moment, but in recent years, it only sounds for connectivity tests. 44 years have passed since the day Polly Pauline Melton quickened her pace on the quiet trail at Deep Creek and disappeared around the bend. Today, the case rests on 3 working theories. Let's examine each, only what is supported by protocols and physical evidence. Accident. To claim there are no dangerous spots within 3 miles of the campground is incorrect. In the 2010s, LiDAR revealed 6 hidden sinkholes, and ground-penetrating radar found several voids among the roots. All were investigated. No fabric, no bones. 2 floods over 40 years have churned the soil. If the body entered the watercourse, it could have been swept into a large watershed and never resurfaced within the search area. Against this theory, the absence of any clothing, shoes, or jewelry. Polly left without a backpack, but her ring, watch, and glasses should have sooner or later triggered a metal detector. 0 response. On the other hand, the cracked shoe sole could have slipped off with her foot and become caught in the swirling stream corridor, where instruments are powerless. We consider a medical crisis, stroke, or sudden blood pressure drop makes the woman vulnerable. She loses consciousness, slips into a hollow, and the flood washes everything away. The chance, small but not 0. Voluntary disappearance. Behind this theory, the October check, the forged passport with her name, a stack of empty envelopes found at home. If Polly planned to run away, she devised a system, a blank sheet. I'm here, withdrawn interest. I have money. She smoked 2 packs a day. Virginia Slims can be bought at any kiosk, and a stash of pills could be sewn into a belt pouch. Practically 10 miles hitchhiking to Highway 441, a scheduled bus to Birmingham, passport office at a quiet branch, then a new document and a shadow. Against age and health. Any doctor will say, without a steady source of medication, a hypertensive risks a stroke within the first 6 or 7 days. No checks were withdrawn after 81, no prescriptions in her name issued. So either the pill supply ran out and the plan failed, or the check was signed by someone else. Criminal involvement. Pickup tire tread marks, a broken scent trail near the wooden boardwalk, male DNA on the pillowcase, a forged passport hiding a man's photo. This forms a scenario. A familiar man, possibly the so-called postcard friend, picks Polly up from the trail, hides her in a house or trailer, forges her signature, takes the money. What happens next is unknown. The forged passport might have been needed to change her identity to a new name, but the man's photo under the woman's photo leaves room for a darker interpretation. The passport was made on the fly, with whatever materials were at hand, disguising the voice behind glass. The money was needed only once. Then the witness was no longer necessary. Against the same 0 evidence. No dirty signs of struggle, no reports of violence, no bones found near the suspect's usual routes. Polygraphs came back clean, no direct leads. Thus, Polly Melton's investigation completes its circle. 3 possible paths, none fully resolved. Maybe one day the forest will reveal another route, and beneath it lies a wedding ring. Maybe the bank will accidentally unearth old footage where the person signing the check is visible in the background. Or maybe a genetic algorithm will announce, "Match found," and we will get the name of the person whose DNA matches 52% of the pillowcase sample. Until then, at the entrance to Deep Creek Campground hangs a sign with the same phone number. If somewhere in a box of memories you find a postcard from a woman named Polly Burnett Wilson, if you see an angel medallion at a personal belongings sale or an old passport with someone else's photo, call. Because sometimes 4 minutes on a forest trail turn into decades of questions, and only one forgotten item can finally piece the story together, which now ends